If there is one component that defined the LFA, it's the naturally aspirated 4.8-liter V10 engine. It's not the most powerful unit, in fact the V10 in a Porsche Carrera GT that preceded it by 6 years produced more horsepower. But, if judgment was to be made on how a car produced its power, the LFA is a complete masterclass of internal combustion. The V10 itself, named 1LR GUE by Toyota, was co-developed with Yamaha and is completely bespoke. Built from an aluminium, magnesium and titanium alloy, Toyota boasted that the 4,805 cubic centimeters V10 was smaller than a traditional V8, and the same weight as a V6. The GUE was built to an incredibly high tolerance, featuring electronic individual throttle body control, a dry sump lubrication system and lightweight forged internals to reduce internal inertia as much as possible. Peak power was rated at 552 brake horsepower at a head-spinning 8,700 rpm, while peak torque was 354 foot-pound at 6,800 rpm. The engine's true capability was not just about on-paper performance though, as the unit itself was often likened to a musical instrument in the way it responded, perhaps no coincidence given Yamaha's involvement. It was so intricately engineered that it was able to rev between idle, and its 9,500 rpm redline so quickly a traditional tachometer needle was not able to keep up. To achieve a near-perfect weight distribution, the LFA used a transaxle layout, with its gearbox mounted at the rear and connected to the engine via a rigid torque tube. Curiously, Lexus also placed the exhaust system in the same transmission tunnel to bring the driver and passenger further inboard. This was done for the benefit of the LFA's center of gravity and mass, putting as much weight as possible closer to the centerline of the car. The LFA's powertrain weakness lay in its single-clutch semi-automatic gearbox. Unable to match the response or drivability of gearboxes in cheaper rivals, the main issue was that by the time the LFA reached the showroom floor, Ferrari was already integrating vastly superior dual-clutch gearboxes into its lineup, as were Audi and Mercedes-Benz. The opportunity for Toyota to create a bespoke chassis for the LFA meant there was very little mechanical compromise to be dealt with. As a result, Lexus decided there was no need for adaptive dampers, instead utilizing coilover dampers attached to front double wishbone suspension and a multi-link rear axle. The brakes are relatively standard 6-piston Brembo monoblock calipers up front and 4-piston on the rear, gripping carbon ceramic discs, but the setup had incredible stopping power. The LFA may have been a little pricey at launch, but it's likely that people with the means to buy one wouldn't have been bothered by it. Lexus has rarely let down customers with its interiors, but a car like the LFA really needed to shine to justify the enormous price tag in the showroom. And, just like the exquisite engine, the result was a cleverly designed and beautifully executed space that made you feel like you were driving something really special. Aesthetically unlike any other Lexus cabin, the LFA artfully integrated the infotainment and HVAC controls into a striking sweeping center console, while the infotainment screen was smartly hidden away. The LFA was also the first Lexus to get digital dials, combined with a metallic bezel that changed the display depending on the driver mode. As mentioned earlier, the LFA required a digital rev counter as a traditional needle would have been unable to keep up with the rate of which the engine revved. The materials used were just as indulgent and specialized as those used elsewhere in the LFA too. Milled aluminium and magnesium were used for the switchgear and indicator stalks, polished carbon fiber for the steering wheel, and waxy soft leather for the sculptural seats and dashtop. It was expertly put together in a way that was unheard of for a car in limited production, and helped elevate the LFA to a point beyond rivals like the Ferrari 599 GTO.